Recording. Hey guys, welcome to Tuesday, Notary Titans. Today is Tuesday, January 30th. It's the end of the month. My name is Jen Neitzel, and I am your co-host along with the one and only GOAT herself, Laura Biewer. Hey, Laura.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is bright and beautiful here in Central California, where I am. Hope everybody else is
Absolutely. Look, it's
doing well.
a gorgeous day here in Texas. I'm actually going to do my afternoon walk after this call. So this call is going to get me pumped up for it. All right, guys, you know how this works. This is like an old-fashioned call-in radio show. We are here to answer your technical questions, your business questions, your marketing questions, any notary questions that you can think of. Laura and I are here to help you. All you have to do is raise your virtual hand. You will find that by clicking the More button or over under the three dots at the bottom of your screen, of your Zoom screen. Just raise that virtual hand and ask away. And we already have one question from Larry. When you're asking the question, please make sure you introduce yourself and tell us what state you are calling from. Hey, Larry, what's your question for us today?
Can you hear me? I'm unmuted.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I'm from California, San Francisco, and I have a question that came out of a buyer package that I did this weekend. Well, I missed your call, meeting with you Saturday, Laura. I was doing the signing. The buyer, one question I had was, I know that we're not supposed to take pictures of signers' ID to turn in. The signing agency that I was working from kept kind of insisting that I take a picture, and finally I worked it out with the buyer, with the signer itself, that she would give me copies of her ID that she would make herself. And I'm wondering, is that a California thing? Because I asked on Facebook, a couple of notary Facebook groups, and everyone kept saying, yeah, just take a picture, yeah, just take a picture. I'm like, I'm not taking a picture. I'm not doing that. I know that that could get me in trouble if something happened with my phone. That was one question. I wonder if that's an official rule here in California or if it's industry wide.
Right. You're not going to find a specific statute or law that says you cannot take a picture of somebody's photo ID other than military. But the problem is not when you take it, but when you go to transmit it from your phone to wherever you're sending it, you now take responsibility for that confidential information on their ID. And if it gets intercepted by somebody who is not supposed to have it, you could end up being pulled into that. So that's why we highly recommend that you not do so. When I'm in that position, I just ask the signer with their own phone to take their own picture, and here's the number I would have sent it to. Here you go. And then they take the responsibility. So that's what it's about. And that would be for any state. It doesn't matter.
That's pretty much what I figured. The other question I had was, the only thing that the signing agency was concerned about was because there was a Patriot Act form that I upload the copies of the ID. But when we got to the escrow documentation, the buyer gave me 2 checks worth $120,000. And she's like, I'm just going to send these along with you. And so there was no, because I've collected funds before, so I know usually everyone knows that they're coming. They know, they tell you specifically what documents to attach it to, how to handle it. But I think that this was just her idea because they were also just written on her checking account. Like they weren't cashier's checks. And everyone says that I should have said no or contacted signing. I mean, had her contact the title company to make sure that they were going to accept those because it's supposed to be cashier checks only from what everyone on Facebook was telling me. I didn't think that was anything that we as the notaries had to deal with. It's like, you want to give us a check, you want to give me a check to go into your escrow account. If you want to write it on your personal account or something, I didn't think that should be something that I should be concerned with. I should just be concerned with making sure that everyone knew that I got the check And so I made sure to scan and upload copies of the checks.
So
But
typically, Larry, there should be instruction. I
right,
usually see
right,
instruction that says over this amount must be certified funds, right? Or it'll say personal checks up to this amount. If there's instructions, then I can just follow them. So yes, I'm expected not to take a check for $100,000 if I see instruction to tell me that's not going to be acceptable. I'm going to point it out. If there are no instructions to tell me, but I know that typically that's how it works in our industry, then I would suggest to the person, the customer, did you verify they will accept your personal check? Because typically this is what I see. If she says, yeah, they said it was okay, then it's not my job after that. But if she says, well, I don't know, I just thought this would be fine. Did you want to check with somebody first so we don't create a delay by having you send these checks when in fact something else? So then it's on her. What, does she want to make a call? Does she want to go through with it? But because I have that knowledge of how it typically works, it doesn't mean it's 100%, but how it typically works, and or I look for those instructions in my own signing documents.
right,
So
right.
yes, you do have a responsibility to at least look for instructions to verify and or suggest have they check that this is going to work.
Right.
Jen, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. 'Cause
No, I do, you know, the rule of thumb in every title company that I've ever worked with, and this includes in my notary life and when I was working in the mortgage world, was $1,500.
Yeah.
That was sort of anything over $1,500, they want a cashier's check. Anything under $15, they're willing to take a personal check, but would prefer always a cashier's check. Just because that's verified funds. Right. That's the difference. Because I mean, you know, any one of us could pull out our checkbook and write a check for $1 million. It doesn't mean we've got $1 million in our account. So the cashier's check is verified funds. So that's the typical rule. But I agree, Laura, as a notary, it is our job to thoroughly read the instructions. And I've never gotten a title package that didn't have some instructions in there about the money. When they know that money's coming,
Right.
that is usually one of the first things that they will address. And I've never heard of a title company taking 120,000 or plus in a personal check, but that doesn't mean they won't. So maybe they came up, I don't know. So, but yeah, I think exactly what Laura said, just make sure that we are reading those instructions. And be careful, Larry. The advice you get off of Facebook University would be the other thing that I would say, because I see a lot of heads going like this, because, you know, we've all seen some real bad advice on Facebook University. And a lot of times, you know, you get that from people who don't do the extra steps like you're doing today to show up to a professional call, to seek advice from professionals in the industry. So I love this question, Larry, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, because I do think we are going to see, this kind of leads me into another on another trail here, but I do think we are going to see not a boom. I would definitely not call it a boom. Boom is an irresponsible word, or anything touching the word boom. But we are going to see a rise in purchases this spring, I think, as the feds are expected to slowly over the next couple years to increase or decrease the interest rates. And so I think that's a great reminder to all of us who may have not been doing a lot of home sales lately, not been doing a lot of home loans, Larry, because the business has slowed. A reminder that we need to go back. Don't take for granted that we remember what all those instructions are. We have to do our due diligence on every job that comes our way.
I did go through the instructions, and that's what freaked me out. There were no instructions about taking a check at all. It seemed like he decided on the moment to give me.
That's where that phone call comes in to say, yeah, I've been told, you know, she's telling me. I mean, you can see you have the in a way, right? So this is a roundabout way, but you have the instructions just by virtue of having the closing disclosure that said on the bottom line what was due, right? That's what the title company is going to say to you. If you're like, well, I didn't know, they're going to say, did you not look at the closing disclosure? It said 100. I mean, that's what I would have said as a title officer, right? Did you not see the closing disclosure? So if they verbally, or if they didn't have it written down, just by virtue of that closing disclosure, we know if money is to be collected or not, or if money's owed in the case of, you know, refinances sometimes. So that right there is, you know, that phone call. But keep that $1,500 just in the back of your head. So if these one-off experiences happen again and you see that, it's going to trigger you to know, gosh, I need to pick up the phone and call this title company to see what they want me to do. Because $120,000 personal check, that's a lot of money to put in FedEx.
There were two of them there. In fact, there were two checks. One for was 120, the other 100,000. The other was for 20,000. And that said, usually the times that I've had to collect funds, the instructions, they were, you know, how you get a page of instructions from the company. They make sure it's in blue ink, make sure this and that. They made a point to say there are checks coming, attach the checks to this, don't staple them, paper clip them, et cetera, et cetera. There was nothing about funds. So I'm like,
okay, but Larry, I want to stop you right there. And for anybody else who does loan signings, and Jen already alluded to this, is don't get lazy about what you know. Just because it's not on the paper doesn't mean you don't have experience or knowledge with the previous experience that says this is not typical. I shouldn't accept it, or I should at least make a phone call to verify, hey, you're expecting her to give you this, but did you tell her what form? Because here's what she's giving me. So we don't want to we don't want to rely that the instructions are going to protect us later. Because I don't think they are. They expect more from us because of the training we've had. And so it's really important that when you notice, well, it's not on the instructions, what's the next thing I need to be doing? If she is checking the disclosure, it looks like she owes 120,000. It doesn't say on the disclosure what form she's going to give it to me in, but she's got to give it to me. But I know from my experience that this is not the norm. So I better make a call to my contact, signing service title company, and say, hey, is this going to be accepted in this way? I don't see anything to tell me this piece of it. So I know that typically we do get those instructions, but just because we don't have them, we got more than instructions in our heads.
Okay.
And that's the difference right there. Yeah. Right there, Laura. That is the difference between general notary work and specialty notary work that Laura always talks about, and being that elevated notary, relying on your knowledge, right, and your past experience to guide you, even when the instructions aren't in black and white. Because look, we all know title companies are not perfect, right? We've all experienced that. Right. But with our experience and our training, these kinds of things that you point out, Larry, by, you know, saying, hey, I'm not getting, nobody's telling me what to do with this money. Right. That's going to make you stand out in their eyes as, oh, this guy's good. You know, he caught a mistake we made. That is what makes you the person they want to call back, the elevated notary versus the usual signing agent, right? So that's awesome. All right, thank you. That was a great discussion, Larry. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Delcy in New York, what is your question for us? Delcy, you're on mute. Okay, Delcy, we are going to come right back to you in just a few moments. Ellen, what is your question for us? Tell us where you're calling from. You're on mute, Ellen.
Oh, interesting situation that happened this morning. I got a text from a signing company. They needed a deed. They didn't specify what kind. It could have been a quitclaim. It could have been a regular deed of trust, whatever, to be signed. Okay, great. And in the instructions, it said, do not, where you would put the document date, leave that blank. And I just looked and stared and said, excuse me? I'm going, but when you do the notary certificate, the acknowledgement, you got to put a date, but they wanted us to leave the document date blank. I saw red flags all over the darn thing and said, I'm not touching this baby. I've never, 20 years I've been a notary, I have never, ever seen that kind of instruction.
So what'd you do?
I didn't accept the order. And
Laura, what would you do?
to me, it was like, to accept it, you would have been asking for trouble.
Yep. Laura, what do you're on mute, Laura.
Yeah,
Uh,
my dogs were notifying me of a leaf blowing.
No.
So yeah, I agree. Sometimes I just turn down the job. If
Mhm.
I believe they're going to ask me to walk into something that I've now wasted my time, and now they're hoping that maybe I'll relent and do it anyway since I'm there, I say no. Now, that's the first answer. The second answer is I also want you to know that there are some dates that are like called an effective date that is different than the rest of the material, and that it's not effective until whatever that date's going to be, and they don't know it till they record it. And so there are some exceptions to that completion rule. That completion rule, particularly in California, is not as solid as you might. It's not 100%. There are going to be very special situations where there's something. Another one where it says book number, page number. They don't know those numbers. I see that in warranty deeds. They don't know those numbers until they get to the recorder's office, and then they're added. And that's in the body of the document, but they can't provide it to me at that moment. So when I know the information cannot be provided before the signer signs it, I go ahead and notarize it, and I indicate in my journal what was missing.
I just thought it was really strange. Like if we would have notarized it tomorrow, and then the document date says February 28th.
And a document date, here's another thing about dates, guys, is that their date with an acknowledgement does not have to match mine. They could have a pre-date or a post-date. It could be in the future because they're going to batch them later. It could be behind me. All that matters for me is my date. My date's what's important, because you're not certifying when they signed it. You are certifying when they appeared. Do you see the difference? My acknowledgement doesn't say when they signed it at all. It doesn't even say I saw them do it. All my acknowledgement says is that they told me they signed it and that they appeared on this day. So that's why there's a little more room with this date issue. So I hope that's helpful for you.
Yeah, but it was still so confusing. I just said,
Sometimes you just gotta let it go.
yeah,
But if it's a jurat, and there are deeds out there that have jurats on them, then they must match.
okay.
Because the jurat says it happened in front of me. But with an acknowledgement, it does not have to match.
Yeah.
Now, again, because I don't want somebody to go out and say, Laura said, a preparation date is not the same as a signing date. The document could have been prepared last week, and then they're signing it in front of me today with my date. So now we got different dates going on. So anyways, it's just something that you cannot be automatic. You need to think through, what are they asking me? What kind of date is it you're talking about? And determine, is this a preparation date that I don't have to worry about? Is this an acknowledgement where I don't have to worry about it matching me? Is this information they can't get? Those are all the questions I ask myself before I say yes or no. And sometimes I'll say, hey, I need a picture of the problem, what's going to be open before I get there, so I can verify, yeah, that's not a problem for me. I can handle that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to take chances.
Sometimes, Ellen, that's what you do.
Yep.
You're right.
There is a lot to be said for following your gut, Ellen. And if that's what your gut was telling you, then that's the right thing. I believe. But like, I think Laura's point is it's okay to ask those questions, to dig a little deeper.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a great lesson for all of us. So thank you, Ellen, for that. I want to take a quick break, you guys, because we're bringing up a special guest today. If you read the email, you know, that we have Nick Colville with Jurat Inc. here with us. And you guys remember 2 weeks ago, the last time we were on TNT, since we took a break last week, you guys had like 6 or 7 questions. You remember that, Laura? About the e-journal. Everybody was asking about the e-journal. And so we wanted to bring Nick up here today to talk with us a little bit about the e-journal. So everybody, let's give a big warm welcome to Nick Colville with
Hey, Nick.
Jurat Inc. Hey, Nick.
Where are you, Nick?
I am here. Hello, hello.
Hey.
There he is, the
Can you
smooth
guys hear me?
sound of Nick Colville.
Awesome.
The
We
voice.
gotcha.
Awesome.
The voice.
The voice.
It's
Well,
great
Nick,
to be here.
you have a raving audience of fans here because we had so many people asking us about your e-journal a couple of weeks ago. So, and I know you've got a fireside chat coming up with Bill soon, and all kinds of. You've got a new 2.0 version of the e-journal coming out. So, first of all, tell us about your product, and then tell us about how you have even made it even better with the 2.0 version.
Well, first, I want to apologize to the few people who had their hands raised. I'm not trying to cut in front of you at all. So I'm sure we'll make sure we
no.
get to your questions. So thank you guys
We
for the
will.
patience. The product is hopefully getting better every single time we get the feedback, update the app, and push it out. And so right now, what we have is an electronic notary journal solution that is now fully capable on both the web app and mobile. So there's a big update that allow people to create their entries on web, which for a lot of notaries who aren't in a state that requires that journal entry to be created concurrently with the act of notarization, it might seem kind of strange, but for a lot of our states, we have to, by law, create that journal entry at the time of the notarization. Therefore, you're in the field typically, or you're in a place where you are performing that notarization and don't typically have a bulky laptop with you or a computer. So what we have done with the latest update is we brought an entirely new web experience for our users who do want to create their entries online as well on the website. And it does allow people to now backdate and backfill journal entries. A lot of people have asked about being able to do that, and we have a very robust audit log system that keeps track of everything that you're doing in order to protect you as a notary, especially if you have to provide a copy of a journal entry to anybody who's inquiring. I've seen many times the journal entry gets subpoenaed or requested and then not used in the court of law because it was insufficient for many reasons. It didn't contain enough that was being requested or needed. And so a lot of the features that we do have revolve around making sure you as a notary can do what you do, continuing to serve the public the way we do as a public servant, but then use the data points available on an electronic solution like this to give you more credibility, more security, more reliability, more professionalism, things like that. So that's a big emphasis of our product. Version 2 has also a ton of other new features like privacy mode and omitting the ID on the scan. But most of it comes down to creating the new web experience so that we can further develop the product in the direction that we want to take it. So that's where we're most excited. But as with everything, my biggest priority is making sure that I'm interacting with everybody in these different states who have different use cases. I always say that I was blown away when I found out that some states you can personally know somebody, and that counts as a method of identifying them. So when we first launched the product, that wasn't in the product because my state doesn't allow that. So I love the interaction with everybody else in this community because it helps us make the product better. And at the end of the day, it's going to ideally help make everybody else's lives easier as well too, by providing them a solution that's going to be digital and hopefully the best one available. Now we happen to be the highest rated on the market, which I take a lot of pride in, but we're only as good as our users say we are, right? So I always focus on the problems, because anytime a problem arises, that's where I want to make sure that we can capitalize on fixing that and correcting the workflow. So that's what we got.
Tell me, Nick, how did you decide that you are a notary innovator? This is, this Notary e-journal. You guys, if you follow me on social media, you already know I'm a huge fan. I love it. Laura loves it. It's part of our CNTDA program. But I want to know, how did this idea, like, what is your background that allowed this innovative idea to come to you?
Well, I guess so. It's tough. I mean, the genesis of it was this, right? That's the genesis of it. It was a problem. I stumbled upon a problem, which was being a very high volume loan signing agent in California and having to do a hardbound journal. That was the problem that sparked me trying to find a solution. But if I go further back than that, I've been self-employed my whole life, and I've fortunately worked with a variety of different people in different industries. So it's always been very present or top of mind for me to be actively trying to identify ways to maybe monetize something or create a business doing something. That's the mindset of somebody who's been self-employed their entire life. And
Yeah.
it happened to be that I hated journaling, and it was just so inefficient time-wise. It became the biggest time sink, as much time journaling as I was doing these appointments with people, and it was just not viable. And so that was really the spark that caused me to reach out to a few people, and say, hey, look, we've worked together on projects in the past. You're a technical guy who can develop, and I have a need for a product. So let's put our heads together, and here we are.
Well, I love that you were a very high active loan signing agent. And I love that, you saw a problem, you went to fix it, and you have helped solve an issue for notaries all across the country, whose states allow. Let me just specify, you need to check if your state allows for a notary e-journal before you purchase it. But I love that you saw a need for something, and you have saved. I know me personally, and I can speak for Laura, and I can speak for Jen Cooper, because we've had these conversations, an enormous amount of time with this product. But you also, your whole family is kind of in the notary and title world. Tell us a little bit about your wife.
Well, I married an escrow officer, hardest working woman I've ever met. Just an incredible work ethic that she has. And when I met her, I had no idea what the industry was about at all. And she's what got me into being a loan signing agent as well too, because after a few years, she was doing her own sign offs. It was a situation where I just looked at that, one of the packets she brought home to do, and I said, well, who gets to do the notarization? If you're not doing it, and she's like, I get to pick. And I said, well, this has got to be the biggest slam dunk I ever ran into as somebody who was trying to find a way to monetize something or create a revenue stream. I said, well, would you pick me as your husband if I got my commission? So she said, absolutely. So I went through the whole process, got commissioned and everything. And so here we are. But she's now up working as assistant county manager for Fidelity, so Chicago Title Company in Santa Clara County. So we're still in the heart of the Silicon Valley, where we see a lot of the movement happen first, and a lot of the movement happened in the biggest capacity. So we see a lot here, and her position in this industry has been incredibly insightful, from just the beginning of me becoming a loan signing agent to us creating this product together. Of course, she's a co-founder, and hopefully the direction we continue taking it, which is hopefully going to bring a lot of opportunity for the different types of notarial environments that we're running into, and the different use cases of needing to better access and utilize the data within a journal. And what can we do with it from there? So it's really exciting, but she is amazing. Her name is Happy. And so if anybody
I was just
ever
gonna say, she has the
yeah,
best name ever. I love her name, Happy.
yep,
It's awesome.
HAPI, so it's pronounced like happy. So everybody always, of course, has a smart pun or a joke to crack about it. But yeah, so she's just an amazing woman, and I'm sure you guys will meet her someday, either at an event, or I'll drag her on here one of these days, just to maybe have a special guest escrow officer who can really
There
nail
you
it. I
go.
mean, she was
Love that.
phenomenal. I mean, unbelievable. This woman, she made a name for herself. I'm going to go on a rant here, but she made a name for herself by doing the refinances that other escrow officers didn't want to do, right? Because escrow officers can bill way more, right? The fees for title and escrow are way higher on a sale and a purchase. So you have these escrow officers who look at the loan signings and refinances as like bottom of the barrel. They don't get the fees are not nearly as high. So in order to get the same amount, month over month, you have to do 10 times the work. And she didn't mind that at all. And she became the most efficient escrow officer, literally in the company, and was breaking records and doing amazing things. And it was all just from her having a great work ethic. And so there's a lot I've learned from that. And we're great partners in this endeavor.
Well, I know you guys have certainly built an amazing company with Jurat Inc. And like I said, we are huge fans of the e-journal. Jen Cooper has put some links in the chat for you guys. And I know, Nick, we've got some questions for you. We do have some folks in line. Do you have time to stick around and hang out with us in case we've
Absolutely.
got a question
Yes,
that pops up for you? Thank you for sharing a little bit about how you got Jurat started, a little bit about your all-in notary family. I love it. And I'm sure we're going to have some questions pop up for you here in just a couple of minutes. Guys, if you have a question for Nick, please feel free to raise your hand. We're going to start back with Delcy. Thank you so much, Nick. We're going to keep you as co-host up here with us.
Perfect.
Feel free to stay unmuted. And if you've got an answer to one of these questions as one of our experts, you're welcome to chime in. But Delcy in New York, what is your question for us? Delcy, you are
able to unmute for some reason.
Okay. Delcy, if you would like to put your question in the chat, Jen, if you would track that and let us know. Faith Hutton in Texas, how are you?
Just fine. Hi, everyone. How are you? Hi, ladies. So my question is, I have an assignment tomorrow for, it's just direct questions, and it's a document that's going to be filed in court. So the paperwork doesn't have a date, and I think I heard Laura say that my date on the under the notarization will be the date. Is that right? Did I hear that?
So what you heard me say is that for the notary, your responsibility is that your notarial certificate reflects the date they appeared in front of you. It cannot be backdated or it cannot be post-dated. It must reflect the actual date you were together.
Okay.
Regardless of the act, it doesn't matter, acknowledgement or jurat. And that is your responsibility. The date in the document may or may not, depending on different factors, be the same.
Okay, so, but this has no date at all, because I guess once they stamp it and file it, that is something that's going to be filed in court.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It might not even have, there are documents that don't have dates until the time comes, but you're going to have a date in your certificate, which reflects when you met with the site.
Okay, so cool. So I called the NNA and there is no venue on this document, and she advised me to write in "see attached" by my name, by Notary Public, and then add a jurat. Can I write on that?
So it could have gone either way. You could have, if there was space to fit the venue above the certification, because all the states require some kind of venue, your state, Texas, and then your county this way instead of stacked this way. It goes this way. If you had room to put that in, you could have done that. And if not, it doesn't look good. It makes it illegible. Don't bother. Replace it with your own. And of course, you would write "see attached" on the one you're not going to use. Okay, cool. And do I staple it? You would attach your staple. Okay. Some of that depends on what kind of document. If it's loan signing, you're probably not going to be stapling it, but for everything else, you are. Okay, yeah, it's direct questions. So staple the certificate to the document. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Faith. Hi, Stephanie in Washington. What's your question for us?
Hi, sorry I'm sick. I sound funny, but I have a quick question. I did a trust
and a will thing last week. Somebody who reached out to me from the general public, so I hadn't worked with this attorney before. And their will did not have a notarization, but it had spots for the two witnesses. And underneath it had a spot for their addresses. And I had them put in their address. I just got a call from the person that I did the signing with, and they said their attorney got that document and said the address should have been where it was signed and not the witness's personal address. And they rejected it. Is that interesting?
So the attorney rejected it? That's who rejected it?
Yeah, they rejected it because they wanted the address to be the venue underneath the witness where it has the witness's
Yeah.
address.
I
Is
would say-
that typical for it to be the venue?
No, it's not. It's typical that the reason they want the address is so that they can reach out to that person 5
That's what
years
I
from now
said.
to verify who they are,
Yeah.
not the venue where they were at. So I'm surprised, but attorneys can, have their own opinion and decide I want it this way. I can control it this way. I got my business here. I'll find the witness. That's certainly possible, but that's not normal. That's not
Okay. I was thinking, was I missing something? But yeah, okay.
No.
Interesting.
I would think if they wanted it different, they would provide you with instructions, Stephanie, to say
Exactly.
otherwise. But
I would think they would pre-print the address they wanted
Right.
if they wanted their own venue, their own.
Yeah. And it was at the signer's home, and the witnesses obviously live somewhere else. And so they
Right.
put their address out of this, city. And of course they went to France for 2 months the day after. So I'm trying to figure out how to fix it, but okay. Or I don't even know, would you reach out to the attorney in that situation? Or I don't know what the best practice would be when it doesn't really make sense,
Personally, I would. I mean, if I don't know, Laura may disagree, but personally, I would reach out to the attorney and say, what the understanding of the reason for the address is to find the witnesses after, and your experience and training has always taught you that. And, find a way of saying, is there a reason you want it to be your address? But again, this might be one of those things, Laura, right? Where it's like, they know about wills and estates, but they don't know about notarial law.
But it's not even a notarized document.
Right.
It's not even a notarized document though. Yeah. So
Right.
that's
Attorneys, guys, every attorney thinks he's president. Right. So, if an attorney says, I want it this way, whether or not there's a law to support it, he wants it that way. I don't have a problem with doing it that way. I would indicate in my journal that I was requested to not use the address that belongs to the witness, because I name my witnesses in my journal when I'm doing other documents. Then I put in the notes about that. And then I go ahead and do it their way. Now, unfortunately, he didn't tell you till after the fact that I wanted it, but maybe they could use this will in the meantime. It's not going to disqualify the will, and then redo it when they come back in 2 months.
Yeah. The guy that called me who scheduled it with me, he said the attorney said it made it look like the witnesses weren't present for the signing because the address was somewhere else. So weird. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up.
Never heard of that.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of them.
Yeah.
With
Isn't that
without
weird?
attorneys, and not one has ever asked me to put other than my own office or my own home address.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's a head scratcher.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Stephanie. That's a good question. Thank you. Sherry G, what's your question for us today? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm South Carolina.
Awesome.
My question for today was, is it possible to be a loan signing agent in South Carolina? I have heard other, but I wanted to ask the professionals.
Yes, it is. There are successful loan signing agents in South Carolina, and they work directly with attorney offices. That's how they do it.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That was my question. Straight and simple.
I love it. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Kimberly in Florida, I know you have a question for Nick Coville.
Yes, I do.
Hi, I saw Nick's presentation on Monday going over the new 2.0, and last night tried to set up some drafts, and I did it online on my computer and tried to get them on either my iPad or my iPhone through the app, and I could not find them. So I don't know what I did wrong, but if I go back to the computer, like I just recreated it like a fake, just a draft, and it's there. I see it, but I can't get it there.
So you did, Kimberly, and it's good to see you. You did everything right. It's what we're
Okay.
doing wrong. The only
Okay.
thing that does not sync across devices are drafts. And when we first launched our product, we didn't even have drafts. I
Okay.
thought this was going to scratch the itch and allow it to be so efficient that people didn't want to create drafts anymore. And even though it's my product, so I'm quick at it and I could jam out an entry in 30 seconds, that doesn't matter. A lot of people immediately requested drafts. And so I said, okay, we got to build that feature out. Now, the data model required to allow drafts, which are not saved to the server yet, to sync across multiple devices wasn't what we built initially because we only had mobile functionality. And so there was very small use case of people who would use a mobile device at home and a different one in the field to create those entries. So there wasn't a huge need for it. And now that we have this version 2 with a fully functional web app, there is a demand for that. And so we're currently building out that functionality and just changing some of the data model attributes on the back end to allow that to sync. But it's something that we currently don't do. So the device that you create the draft on is where you have to finish the draft. But once the draft is saved and finalized, it hits the server, it syncs across all your devices and it's available to view and everything like you would expect. It's just when it's in that draft state. So you didn't do anything wrong. That is all on us.
All right. Yeah, I've been creating drafts like on the iPad because that's typically what I bring with me to signings. But since I saw your presentation, I was like, ooh, I don't have to get that out. I'll just do it all here while I'm looking over my package. So I thought it was something that I didn't hit. So that clarifies it. Thank you very much, Nick.
You got it.
So Nick, tell us really quick, the 2.0 version, there's two ways to pay for this. This is either an annual subscription or a monthly subscription, right?
That is correct. Yeah. So you're either billed monthly at $19 a month or you're billed annually at $168 per year, which breaks out to be $14 a month. That's correct.
That's awesome. And let me tell you what, worth every single penny. I love it. If you are an e-journal user, I want you guys to drop me a 1 in the chat right now so Nick could see all of his raving fans that are on this call. And go ahead and I'll put me in there as that 1 too.
and Lynn, I do see that I don't want Lynn to get washed out. Lynn, you typed in the chat if you're still here that you heard they're not permitted in California. So that's incorrect. Obviously, it was clarified in the chat. You can use these e-journals in California. You do need the digital thumbprint technology, which is exclusive to our product, right? And that was part of the hurdle of creating this was getting digital thumbprint capture to the Notary journal, and nobody had done that yet. So this is what makes this compliant with California law. And the follow-up question you said was, well, how do I get this submitted to the county clerk? And as with everything, you will speak to your county clerk specifically and ask them how they want them delivered. Everybody who I've heard of do this currently is typically told to just print them out and then provide that in some type of maybe binding or put it in a binder or just bring it all together. Now, the good thing is when you export your journal entries on a month-to-month basis in our system, we have something where you can generate something called a sequence report. And the sequence report will pretty much confirm the authenticity of the sequential nature of your journal by just telling you what the server sees as the sequential journal entries side by side with the actual journal entries you export. Because a lot of times people would say, well, gosh, I exported this and now I have a PDF that's got maybe 15, 20 pages worth of entries, but I could just swap these around, right? So how are they going to know which ones are sequential outside of the timestamps that we provide? So the sequential report is how you would help bolster that position and provide confidence to whoever you're submitting that to. But the county clerks will tell you how to submit it. And ideally in the future, it's going to be digital, right? So that's the hope. that technology goes in that direction. But for now, you'll probably have to print.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Nick,
Yes.
there are very few states where it's not acceptable. Can you name the few states where it's not there yet?
Yeah, so the e-journal is, we use the word compliant with their code or their law, right? So we're not compliant as a replacement, a sole replacement for a hardbound journal in Arizona, Nevada, Washington, not DC, but Washington and Missouri. So those states typically, though, have verbiage that allow you to keep an electronic journal in tandem with a hardbound journal. So the wording is always very strange, and it's different per each state that creates these requirements. But a lot of times it's typically just not compliant with code as a full replacement for, and that's typically for only in-person tangibles. So those states like Washington or Arizona or Nevada that have passed RON legislation and have their RON approval, they have the ability to use an e-journal for electronic notarizations.
Right.
So it's always important just to look at that code because it's going to be different for every state. But those four I mentioned, Nevada, Arizona, Washington up north, and then Missouri, those are the ones that have very specific verbiage in terms of using it as a complete replacement.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to add too, guys, that the customer service for the e-journal is fantastic. And Nick, I know that you keep the opinions and the wants and needs of notaries across the country and work to make that happen as best that you can so that you have the best product out there. So if there ever is an issue, they're getting you on the phone and you are going to help them work through it. And I love that you take a complete ownership of that as well.
And there's something else I'd like to add for those of you who are in the specialty of jails and prisons. I am not able to take my phone in with that app, but in some counties, they are allowing you, if you're using an iPad and that's what you have on the iPad, they'll let you use the iPad and then you can sync it up back outside. So that's the one thing, specialty where you have to decide or get another device just for that. And the other one, and the other one is the customer service to the customer you're serving. The coolness factor is off the chart. People are just like amazed and said, when did they get rid of the big honking journal? And when I can say, guess what? You'll see them out there. I'm in the next century. We're ready to roll. They see you as somebody who's on top of it. The technology is available and you are leveraging it. And they love how fast it is. And they love getting their thumbprint done on that little device. There's just something so much fun about that. So my customers love that I use this.
Oh yeah, my customers think I'm like completely technology savvy, which if you know me at all is laughable, but they love that. So I don't need to do thumbprints in Texas. We don't accept those, but they love how you can just sign, right on my phone. They're like, that's just so cool. And, everything is added and time stamped. And I just love it. I just love it. And you can save your own documents in there. It's fantastic. So you got some big fans out here, Nick.
That's what we're all about.
We've got a couple more questions that we are going to take. Nick, hang out with us. If you guys do, I think I saw a few questions pop up in the chat. If you do have a question for Nick, please feel free to raise your hand. He is here to answer any questions you have about the Notary e-journal. But first, very quickly from Mr. Phil Shannon. Hi, Phil.
Hey, I appreciate that. I want to say some good things about Nick. For those of you who don't know, he's my neighbor. We're within a few miles of each other. I've had the good fortune of working with him in a handful of different notary functions. Amazing things. As you know, I work with lots and lots of notaries, and they all extol the virtues of his service. So Jura Writing's a great service. So take advantage. So my little plug. But I do want to plug my event. As most of you know, just a few minutes after Tuesday Notary Titans, text me. I know a few have already texted me for the Zoom link. I'll get you that link. We'll do a short presentation, explain to you how you can protect and grow your business, maybe generate additional source of income. But most importantly, as you hear on TNT all the time, legal questions, legal concerns are part of your life as a notary. Let us help you get those questions answered. Make sure you're on the right side of the law. And then we have an identity theft plan that's top notch as well. So thanks, everybody. Always appreciate Jen, Laura, all you wonderful people. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. You'll find Phil's information in the chat, so you can join him. And Linda, oh, you just put your hand down, Linda. Do you have a question for us?
I did, but you answered it on the chat. I didn't see it. It was in regards to going back out where the witnesses had put in their own address instead of what the lawyer needed. You talked about, first of all, I was going to say, is it her obligation to fix it? Like when we mess up on a loan signing document. And if it's not an obligation, does she charge for it going back out? Or is it just good practice that she goes, oh, I'll fix that, and then know that lawyer wants that in the future? How would you handle that?
I think it's a business decision, and I would make it how the attorney wanted it. I want long-term relationships with the attorney.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. I agree with that too. Okay, just questioning. Thank you.
And I told him I'd come back free of charge and fix that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's like the business
yeah.
decision, Stephanie, obviously. Whether you agree with it or not is not the point, right? You want to have a relationship with this guy, and he apparently has his reasons for that, whatever they might be. Does anybody else have any questions for us? Jen, do we have any in the chat that need to be addressed?
There have been some that have been popping up. Questions about about journals. How long do you have to keep them? Laura answered that, but she answered it to me. They've all been kind of handled.
Jim's has his hand up. I saw there was some confusion about his call. Oh, Jim, you put that down. Jim, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Hey, you've got a call coming up for the NBB crowd.
I do. And that's on Thursday morning at 7 in the Pacific time if you're an NBB member. And I invite you to come out and join me for that. But I actually did have a question that just came up for me. I just received one of these things in the mail. I don't know if you can see it. It's a subpoena. It's a subpoena. So the first time I've ever been subpoenaed as a notary. They want a deposition. And I know the person who's having a problem is contesting a will, and I was the notary on the will. And I was hoping, Laura, maybe you had some words of advice.
Show up when and where they tell you. And just review the information that you do have. Write down any details that you happen to recall about this particular assignment, if you recall them. I don't know how old that assignment is. And if you are not sure, if you don't remember, be saying that. Don't be saying, well, I think maybe this happened or that happened. Either you know it or you don't. And it's okay to say, I don't recall.
Okay. All right. And to Phil Shannon's comment there, I did call my Legal Shield representative and they gave me some great advice. But yeah, I just wanted a little advice from someone that has experience in that field. I'm not worried about it, to be honest with you. I have all my ducks in a row, so I know I'm okay.
It's just nerve-wracking the first time. I was very nervous the first time it happened, and the law is very black and white. There's no I think so or maybe, it's yes or no.
Right.
I don't recall, like Laura said, and just be who you are, your honest self. And let me just answer really quick. I saw this pop up in chat. Somebody asked, what's NBB? NBB is the Notary Business Builder community. Jim is one of our faculty members who teaches the Google Business Profile class, which is awesome. He teaches you how to optimize your Google Business Profile. Laurel's a faculty member. Bill's a faculty member. I'm a faculty member. Matt Miller, who's on this call, is a faculty member. Judy Lawrence with Apostees, Sandra Long with LinkedIn, the list goes on. Notary Business Builder is the largest notary collaboration in history. And Jen Cooper is going to put a link in the chat if you would like to look into joining. It is definitely worth your time. Christine Stark, what's your question for us today? Christine, are you there? You're on mute. Okay, Christine, we cannot hear you. If you are there and you would like to put your question in chat, we will see if we have time to get to it. My friend Celicia in Jacksonville, Florida. Hi. Celicia, what's your question?
I was just going to say, I got a subpoena too, and I pulled up my Jurat ink because I don't really remember what happened 20 minutes ago. This is 2 years ago, but I pulled it up. I was talking to the attorney. I told him that said, 5:16 and 28 seconds. I took this ID, and she said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, it's just, so yeah, I'm going to get a chance to go to South Florida and tell somebody that I notarized for these people and no one was under duress." And yeah, so it's really nice to have the Jurat ink. And the girl was getting deployed in the Navy, and I still even have her number in my phone, and it's like Wanda Navy Smith. So there you go.
I do that too. I put little reminder words so I don't forget people in my phone. But that is true. And I think Nick was talking about this a little bit earlier. The e-journal, it timestamps exactly when you scan an ID. It timestamps exactly when they sign, exactly when you add a document, so that when if a judge ever asks you, you have it down to the second of when you took this information on these folks. And that's what he was talking about, that's stored on the server, right, Nick?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of why we developed that audit log, to track everything you are doing at any point. And even if you're creating a draft ahead of time, you'll have the timestamp for whenever the data points are entered into that journal. Also, when you create the draft, when did you finalize the entry, when did it upload to the server? So everything with the goal in mind that, just like Celicia talked about, you can provide to the community a better service, which is what we're here for. And I love knowing that people are able, like Celicia, to do that and have the confidence to do that, because we deter fraud. That's one of our main goals here. And nothing scares me more than knowing that there could be court cases where a notary's journal is subpoenaed, the information not adequate, and the judge might rule in favor of the person who actually did commit fraud if they were able to go get away with it and there's not enough evidence to prove them guilty. So I love hearing that, Celicia. Thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, it definitely
By
keeps
the way,
us.
I'm sorry, Jen, there were a couple
Okay.
questions related to, I think, follow up to Jim's announcement that he had a subpoena. You don't get to charge anybody for your travel, your time. It is your duty as a public official to show up and do what you need to do. It's a free device.
Yeah. Judge probably wouldn't be very happy if you handed an invoice over to him as you're giving.
Here's my bill.
Although I would love to see their face if that happened. All right, guys, I want to talk about an upcoming event that is happening in March in a place that does not get a lot of in-person notary events. And as you know, if you've listened to Bill and Laura and myself for any amount of time, you guys know that we recommend that you get yourself to a notary event at least a couple of times a year to get out there, meet other notaries, spark those ideas, helps you discover the problems. And, Nick did that today. It's a great example of seeing a problem and fixing it, and being in a room with other notaries helps bring you clarity on some of these ideas that you might have. Because I know some of you out there are probably sitting on some really great ideas. So the Pacific Northwest Notary Meetup is happening in March. Jen has put the link in the chat for you guys. Laura, tell us what you're going to be talking about, because the cool thing about this event, while it's called a meetup, it is really some very valuable learning opportunities that are happening with the speakers. So tell us, you're giving one of my favorite talks, but you edited it. It's new, but tell us about it.
So first of all, because they realized they were not just having a meetup or a meet and greet, which is how it was called in the beginning, it's really now called a collaborative, because they wanted people to understand this is a common network. This is come and get some answers, get some information, and network. So I think it's really important for anybody who went to their meet and greet last year. This is not that. This is really more like a one-day conference. I will be presenting an edited presentation of something. If some of you caught me on the NNA Summit, I talked about Pay Me First. And now I'm going to be expanding those thoughts in terms of the mindset that allows you to pay yourself first and go from making whatever the amount is, whether it's 6 figures or less, to keeping that money. So I'm going to be hitting both sides of it, the mindset, the pricing strategy. You can't have a good pricing strategy if you don't have the right mindset first. And then once you have the pricing strategy, you have to know how to allocate the money once you have some, right? And then you develop the discipline so that when times change, like they did in 23, the money you made in 2021, 22, you've got some of that still to carry you through when these times are like that. So I'll be talking about all of those aspects of money matters, which are really important for us.
There's so many great speakers coming. There's Bill Soroka, there's Matt Miller with the California League of Independent Notaries. There's Laura, of course, with Coach Me Laura, and Judy Lawrence is going to be talking about how to avoid sanctions as a notary. But guys, we are out of time for today. I know we've got some questions. Please come back next week when we will be talking with another special guest from the NNA that's going to be joining us. Probably not for the whole call, but she will be on for a little bit. Nicola Jackson will be here. Guys, thank you so much. I hope your week is fabulous. Laura, you want to close us out?
I do. And before I do, I am going to take the opportunity to make a time-sensitive announcement. That's at 5:30 today on Clubhouse. Sue Hope, Matt Miller, and myself are having a notary successful journey. So if you're available for that, please join us for that. And everybody else who took the time to be with us today, I'm so glad that we had this conversation. Nick, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all next Tuesday. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.